What is going on YouTube? This is Acid Roots. So I'm going to review the fourth album by rapper Bubba Sparxxx. Basically, this product is called Pain Management, and it came out in the fall of 2013. So basically, after the hit album from 2006 by Bubba Sparxxx, The Charm, Bubba Sparxxx basically took off 7.5 years to get to this particular album. Now, it's not actually like there was like a 7.5 year gap. I reviewed a number of his products that he dropped. He dropped like mixtapes, compilation albums, EPs, things like that. So some of those projects that came out between 2007 and 2013 would basically be the Survive Till You Thrive mixtape, which came out in 2007, year after The Charm. Then there was the New South. Then there was the New South compilation album from 2009. And there was a Best of Bubba Sparxxx mixtape that had some new stuff on there from 2009. Then there was a 2010 EP, which was called like Miracle on Gamble Road or something like that. I reviewed all those products. They're in the Bubba Sparxxx playlist, I would have to say. But then basically, Bubba Sparxxx, he might have done something in 2011. I'm not quite as full blown sure, but he worked on this particular product between 2011 and 2013. So it might have been like an in between, something like that product. I'm not as full blown sure, just because Bubba Sparxxx's true discography is tougher to track down. Some of these projects were a little bit more finicky to kind of find with some of the ones that I've found across these past couple of years. But I look after just being able to say this is kind of seen as his this is kind of seen as his like true fourth studio album after The Charm from 2006, and a lot had happened since 2006 between like the ringtone rap era and days of like when Ying Yang, just when more ringtone rap and crunk type music was more popular with things like Ying Yang Twins, Lil Jon, some of those type folks, is the pitches behind it. Songs like Miss New Booty and Heat It Up were not in the same category as much on this particular album. And this album particularly changed. It does not try to embrace like the relative kind of more kind of urban. It doesn't try to embrace like the overall kind of contemporary type appeal of like he did in 2006. If you're looking for another album like The Charm, this is not really that, but it takes it back to like country rap just mixed with like 2010s type fare. Basically, it's a combination of like the albums Dark Days and Bright Nights from 2001 and Deliverance from 2003 with the more early 2010s type fare, just with some of that relative countryside type gloss about it. So it's just a good pitch. It's a pretty well produced album, but it is rural, I would have to say, within that pitch. There's no problem with that, but just look after the tone just for folks who may, if you do want songs like some of his more contemporary type songs from Bubba Sparxxx, some of those type of ones that he was on, like Heated Up and like Miss New Booty and some of those type singles. There's another one like Claremont Lounge, some of those type ones from The Charm. It's not really in display on here, so there's not really contemporary Bubba Sparxxx. This is years removed from like his commercial bite. He just was really, I mean, he does at least have like a gold certification single on here, which is a pretty good pitch. Didn't realize that he kind of got some popularity back with the song Country Folks with Danny Boone and Colt Ford. Pretty dope that Colt Ford's on here. I don't really know Danny Boone as much. I think he's the cat on the hook, but and Danny Boone's the cat on the hook, but Colt Ford, the rapper, is on here. It's a pretty dope pitch to kind of get this one. So it's just a good concept about this. Just being able to say it, but this is basically like Country Folks is Bubba Sparxx's biggest song since 2006, and really he's only had two gold certified singles, so it's a dope enough pitch to kind of get this. But I do briefly remember this album. I remember the library had this particular album back in the day, and I remember renting it as far as those pitches kind of happened, but I did not full blown fuck with it as full bound. Then there was like another album that he dropped in 2014 that was kind of more of the same. I mean, back in those days, I was kind of wondering. I thought Bubba Sparxxx was going to return to like his 2006 chart appeal, but it turns out that was his new avenue and angle, just because he was past like his full blown kind of charting days. But it's the same thing with Made with Mick. It's the same thing with Made with Mick Kosh Mill Road from 2014. It's the same sort of pitch. So these subsequent Bubba Sparxxx albums after this particular stage are going to be more country rap and just less like The Charm. But we'll get to some of those. I don't actually know his 2014 album that well, but I do like the concept of this particular project. So this is a pretty good album here. It's a brief album, just 11 songs as far as those pitches gonna happen. Really feels more like 10 songs just because Wicked World is kind of more and like the fair just being like a spoken word with like some lyrics at the end as far as those pitches gonna happen. But I look after it, 10, 11 songs approximately on here. It's just a good pitch. It does have a couple singles, just pretty good rendition of just something that Bubba Sparxxx kind of returned to his fold, because basically Colt Ford and folks like that, Haystack, Everlast, some of those types of people had really blown up just within that relative type fare. Some of those type of folks had really blown up within that type fare as far as country rap kind of music kind of went. So it's just a good concept as this was starting to become more burgeoning and some of that typeness to kind of get just within the appeal behind it. So yeah, I would look after it. There were two singles. There were two singles off this particular project, and one of which was Country Folks with Danny Boone and Colt Ford, and the other one was Splinter. So I recommend both these, and for the most part, this is another stock and classic album, damn near. I mean, it's not quite a full blown classic, but it's definitely pretty close. Definitely an appreciable type one. that does combine some relative typeness on here. I mean, it does have some stretchers on here that kind of snag down the experience somewhat, but I look after this is more of like a balanced album, just covering all the bases as far as those pitches would kind of happen. But for the most part, maybe it doesn't have. I do think this particular album needed a little bit more commercial buy. I feel like Country Folks, while it is a gold certified single, I'd have to say I do look after the concept that something I do feel like but I do feel like Bubba Sparxxx maybe I do feel like Bubba Sparxxx maybe needed like a cash grab, something like Miss New Booty or She Got Me, like oh shit, some of those type ones from like 2006, 2008, some of those type fairs is some of him and his more commercial days. On top of that, Timbaland's not on here, so I mean, I heard on one of his songs on the song Devil's Fire, he says that Timbaland wasn't really fucking with them in 2012, 2013. I don't know what happened there. I mean, I realized that Bubba Sparxxx did kind of go through like some Percocet issues or pill issues as far as those pitches kind of happened. It's like something like that. He had some sort of drug abuse in like the late 2000s, early 2010s. That was another reason why he was kind of here and there around that particular time and didn't follow it up. But I mean, obviously, he was going to put out an album called The Impolite Gentleman in 2008, but it just kind of became like the best of Bubba Sparxxx and the New South albums. But I mean, those singles at least happened on that. But you did get a series of products that I reviewed. So but yeah, Country Folks is like a late summer kind of outback grazing and pastime. I would definitely feel like it's like a smoke outside and weather enjoyment of a song to kind of get here. And this is just an overall feel good song. I do appreciate the tone behind this one. This just reminds me of something that Jason Aldean or Colt Ford would kind of do. Just relatively lazy, just in the appeal behind it. Just kind of one. It really just feels like fall festival type music pitches like that, where it has a little. I said it was lazy, but it has a little bit of like this countryside pep towards it. But it's kind of like a lackadaisical kind of country pop type single, country pop rap type single to kind of get just within the appeal. I mean, there's definitely more vicious songs in this particular album. I definitely feel like Hairdresser Hot's probably one of the most vicious songs on here, at least in terms for that relative appeal. But Bubba Sparxxx really kind of tones down the overall craziness on this product. He's had crazier albums. Definitely The New South was crazier. The Charm was crazier. Survive Till You Thrive from 2007 was crazier. Some of those types of pitches. But this is a pretty good country rap type staple to kind of get. Him and Colt Ford do good on their verses as far as that pitch kind of goes, and it's a pretty good Danny Boone hook to kind of get here. So it's good affable type one if you're just wanting some vanilla kind of country rap embrace to kind of get. So it's a good concept for that. Splinter, the second single, didn't chart as heavily, and I'm not sure how it charted on like the country charts, but it's like a glazed and forlorn kind of autumn haze of a song, I'd have to say. This reminds of Deliverance, the single from 2003, the title track single that was called Deliverance. There's like a more swash kind of version of that particular song. I'd have to say it's a little bit more forlorn. It's like a light lick kind of graze of a song to kind of get here. Pretty good hit for that sort of pitch. Yeah, this vintage and classic Bubba Sparxxx that just returns that relative fold that he had with some of those hazy, just kind of dredgy type songs from like the early 2000s. I'd had some good pitch to kind of get that. I mean, yeah, despite the fact that Bubba Sparxxx had put out all these products, this is really only like his true fourth album as far as those pitches kind of happen. So it really had been, if you just count like his actual chronology or discography, it was really only, it had been 7.5 years since The Charm. So it was just a pitch behind that. But it's this kind of thing. It just reminds me definitely of like Deliverance from 2003. Pretty affable type one. So in terms of like the album, the songs I recommend on here, basically out of 11 songs, I wound up recommending 8. So only 3 songs I don't recommend on here would just be the song Right, the song LaGrange, and the song Wicked World. So talk about those. Basically Right and LaGrange are just songs that have more homely type fare, just more stretchers, just within that relative type tone. These are just ones, especially the song Right. This is just a particular one that just reminds me of something Jason Aldean would do in a more down tempo, just like dredge about it, just within the aspect. It's really one that this is like some good work on winding pitches like that. But it's kind of the same thing with LaGrange, just the concept of just like some sunset gazing pitches like that. It's more relaxed type fare that just doesn't have much kind of spark to it within the aspects. I mean, you can folks can pull off some of these songs at times. Folks can sometimes pull off these songs when they have like the correct pitch about it. Just in particular, I've seen Everlast pull off a song like this with songs like What It's Like and some of that Unwind, but it just didn't really have the appeal with that. And Wicked World, I would have liked that song better. I like what Bubba Sparxxx was trying to do with this song, but I just feel like and maybe it just takes more listening to it as far as those pitches can happen. I would almost say that could be an almost song, but I just look after it. It's just kind of the looming country type fare about it that just didn't really have the bite. I mean, I feel like if it had been like a standard song and he had just rapped about the particular woman in the song that he was talking about as far as those pitches kind of happened, and it had been like more of like a standard verse, like something like more like Splinter or something like that, I would have said it probably would have turned out better. But it's just the composition of that particular song, that just the arrangements of how it kind of went were just not quite as synchronized with it, I'd have to say. Had some decent composition about it, but not nearly as pizzazzful, I'd have to say. But I look after it. So yeah, there's a number of songs on here. 8 out of 11 is definitely pretty superb, I'd have to say. So One in particular that has a lot of appeal is Hairdresser Hot. It's like a jivey kind of outback evening shindig heat. I would definitely feel like it's like some good beer swilling frat and like a good unwind type mode type feel to kind of get with some of this. And this is a very hooky song and it has some pretty good radio snap about it. So this is one that's probably a more vicious Bubba Sparxxx song. This is definitely, I mean, I do feel like he was probably crazier in the late 2000s between his 2007 mixtape Survive Till You Thrive and then the New South album from 2009. I kind of feel like those were just crazier Bubba Sparxxx moments, but this is definitely for like some alternative rap and like a country rap type sense. This has pretty good appeal about it, just within the sense of being able to nail it. Just for folks that have forgotten about Bubba Sparxxx, just to return to that fold and kind of see what he's up to. So it's a pretty good pitch to kind of get that there. Real nice apple type one. The thing about a lot of these, I mean, this is one of the more snappy ones. There are some ones like Get You a Pole is kind of one that has a little bit more like in motion kind of on this traverse type in mind, but there are some ones like Bangin' is kind of like something that reminds me of something Kid Rock would do, but like Ride Out, songs like Ride Out of Town and Hairdresser Hot, or at least some relative kind of house party or just outback kind of party type songs to get from Bubba Sparxxx that just have like some relative knock about them, especially Hairdresser Hot. That's a real hooky one. Speaking of Ride Out of Town, it's a nice one. It's like a buzzing kind of outback turn up, I would definitely have to say. It's like a make some noise, kind of smoke good, night fanfare to definitely get on this particular song. It's like a standard dap kind of hitter. So it's just some basic kind of unwind, just kick back a bit, just standard, this fraternized type fare, smoke around a bonfire, some of those type pitches. Just appreciate like the cooler weather. It's kind of some kickback, jive, crack jokes, some of that type fare. Just a good, excellent concept to kind of have some of these. I feel like it's kind of interesting just the fact that, I mean, the reality of this project is despite the fact that Bubba Sparxxx hasn't been in here, I mean, a certain thing about this project is just the fact that this is such a vanilla Bubba Sparxxx album. But the thing about it is, I just think the difference is kind of a little bit of a culture shock just for folks who probably were used to. I mean, for folks who actually haven't fucked with Bubba Sparxxx since like The Charm or Deliverance, which Deliverance was at least like a vanilla country rap type project, but this is a vanilla project here, but I feel like Bubba Sparxxx kind of toned down his craziness a few notches. Just it's not quite as crazy as some of, like I was saying, like his late 2000s projects, but also in the same time, it's very country fried. So it's just kind of the concept. I just feel like it's a mild kind of or a relative kind of just the relative kind of culture shock to kind of have that learning curve about this particular product. Because I just think for folks that remember Bubba Sparxxx for like his 2006, 7, and 9 projects, it probably is going to be a differential type tone. I look after it. I mean, obviously by this stage, considering this album's over 10 years old, it may not be that much of like an impactful kind of shock, but you just look after just being able to say that it kind of leaves folks, well, why didn't Bubba Sparxxx put like a cash grab on here or something like that? Was this kind of thing. I do feel like I'd probably say Country Folks, Hairdresser Hot are some of the immediate ones to kind of go for here. And I would also say Devil's Fire is a nice one that had like some relative commercial bite. So speaking of Devil's Fire is like an early 2010s kind of reminiscent mixtape hustle song to kind of get here. It's like a good evening commerce. I would definitely feel like good evening commerce glimmer, I'd have to say. It's like a pretty good radio grab type hit. If you like country rap with mixed with like a mixtape hustle song from like 2009, 2010, 2011, some of those type fairs, I'd say it's a pretty excellent concept. Going to get some of these in particular. Just Bubba Sparxxx doing that particular kind of song similar to like Meek Mill and Yo Gotti, some of those type folks, and Rick Ross and like some of those type folks that were on the mixtape scene back in those particular days. Pretty good affability behind that. Get You a Pole is another highlight as well. It's like a nice kind of in motion type one. It's like an in motion kind of mid pace, get to it type song kind of get here. It's like a decent kind of evening excitement for like some stunt hunger and shindigs, I'd have to say. So it's just kind of the concept. You're in the mood to stunt, but you're just kind of more kind of in conduit with that, just kind of where it's just kind of the hunger for wanting to stunt some pitches like that, whether it's just the fact that you're stunting right now, but you want to flex larger, some pitches like that. You just kind of have the appetite and you're just really on the grind. You want to get towards it, make more money than you're already making, something like that. It's some real good stunt hunger for that sort of pitch. And it's also some excitement for getting ready to head to like a shindig, some of that type fair. Just get ready to get crunk for the night, go to like a karaoke bar hopping, some of those type fairs kind of get. So it's an excellent concept there. Good kind of in motion type song, just country fried just within the tone. Bangin's a pretty quality one. This is like an out in the countryside kind of air. Bangin is like an out in the countryside air type tune to kind of get here. It's like some summer heat and like a lazy simple day. I would definitely feel like this good concept for that. It's like some routine kind of fun amongst like basic tasks. I would feel like it's a pretty dope song. So I look after it. Is the concept of this simplistic kind of day, just with an aspect, just really kind of standard kind of countryside, just relative summer, just atmosphere about it, but just amongst the concept of paying the bills, getting cell phone bill paid, some of those type pitches, just kind of paying the cell phone bill pitches like that, picking up some standard food, some of that type fare, just kind of a more routine type day, just within a sense, just in a lazy kind of here and there type aspect just behind it. No real, just kind of lackadaisical, I'd have to say, within that aspect. Really reminds me of Kid Rock. I would definitely have to say just a concept of something Kid Rock would have done back in his Cocky or Devil Without a Devil Without a Cause days. Some of those particular type tones, pretty good pitch. Kind of get Bubba Sparxxx on like some relative rap rock type tones just within that tone. But it's pretty excellent concept within that. Quality highlight. Down Yonder's another highlighted one as well. It's like a country rap kind of commercial grab, I would feel like here. This reminds me of like early 2000s Bubba Sparxxx, I'd have to say. It's like some good excitement, I would feel like. It's like a vanilla hit night to kind of have here. Down Yonder just feels like something that Bubba Sparxxx would have gotten from Timbaland back in the 2003 Deliverance days of the dark days and bright nights type days as far as those pitches kind of happen. This kind of reminds me of one of those singles off of his 2001 album Deliverance. Just a song like Jimmy Mathis, some of those type tones kind of get. So it's pretty good pitch. It's just a throwback type album within a sense. It's kind of contemporary to the early 2010s, but it's also contemporary to like the early 2000s. So it offers both angles as far as those pitches kind of happen, where you get old and new Bubba Sparxxx, at least up to that point, and have some good affability behind it. And I'm not sure if I talked about the song "Right Out of Town." But I'm gonna go ahead and talk about this one if I don't recall if I did. So it's like a buzzing kind of outback turn up. I would definitely feel like it's like a make some noise, kind of smoke good, kind of night fanfare. I would feel like about this song. It's like a pretty standard dap hitter to kind of get here. This song is one of the few other sheer turn up type songs kind of get. It's very similar to Hairdresser Hot. It's some more kind of about 7 out of 10, 7.5 out of 10 in terms of like standard bounce and craziness, but it's a good enough bop to kind of get here. Just an in between type one. This reminds a little bit of like the Charm Days with a little bit more country fried type pitch about it. I'd have to say, so it's a dope enough concept. But yeah, I would say, but like I was saying, Bubba Sparxxx is not as full blown feral on this particular product, but it definitely has some good moments. But I do think Colt Ford at this particular stage in 2012 and 2014 definitely got crazier than Bubba Sparxxx. He just feels a little bit more beleaguered and a little bit more laid back, a little bit more composed on this particular product, which is interesting because I kind of felt like he could have had like a second win here that probably could have been pretty vicious, like Juicy J did in like the early 2010s. But he kind of took a more kind of composed and this kind of more sage type tone with this particular product. I mean, there's some ones on here, but it's not quite as feral, like I was saying. So yeah, I look after the score. I'm going to give this album me recommending 8 songs out of 11 on here. I'm going to give this album like an 8.5 out of 10. I feel like that's pretty damn good just within the pitch behind it. It's definitely a pretty balanced and widespread type album. It's an underappreciated one nowadays. I definitely feel like just the tone behind it. It did at least get a gold certified single in country folks. Has some pretty good appeal behind it. But in terms of like the standard craziness, I feel like, yeah, I was kind of here I was thinking that Bubba Sparxxx was going to have like the sheer bite and appetite of like his projects from 2007, like Survive Till You Thrive and The New South, some of those type pitches. But it's a balanced album. Definitely is a compact type album that just has the appeal behind it. It's a good album. Definitely pretty serviceable just within the tone behind it. But, some of the stuff I was listening to in 2013, like Stay Trippy by Juicy J, and like album, I'm trying to think of some other ones that kind of had that relative type fare, just like Wiz Khalifa's One Night in First Class, some of those type pitches from late 2012 early 2013, like Casinos mixtape from 2013, and Future's FBG the movie, some of those type pitches, Meek Mill's Dream Chasers 3, some of those type pitches. It's really surprising that Bubba Sparxxx just didn't have more severe turn up on this particular product, because he was definitely pretty country pride. He was like a rural outback kind of version of Eminem, just within like the craziness that he would get to, and he always had that wild type appeal. But it's kind of happened to be the thing. So yeah, that just kind of happened to be the thing. So 8.5 score. In terms of the social score, I'm gonna go ahead and give like a 7.25 out of 10, because I feel like it's good enough on here. It has some compact bite about it, just in the aspect behind it. It's a balanced project. As some of these ones, it's a little bit more of like a centered type project that has just more, like I said, it's just more sage and kind of composed from Bubba Sparxxx than what I was probably possibly expecting. I mean, I feel like it's on here, but I just think the concept between like his fallout with Timbaland and like his possible addiction problems that he had throughout the early 2010s, I just look at it, just has like a differential type tone. I do feel like it's somewhat on here, but it's just kind of the concept that this has more. It's just not as fiery a product, I'd have to say, just in the time. I feel like Bubba Sparxxx at least still wants to get money, but in terms of like more kind of craze type instance, in terms of like some crazy nights, like full blown kind of carnivorous lady songs and get crunk type songs, Friday songs, some of those type pitches and vehicle turn up, it just doesn't really have that relative display. So it's just kind of concept, but it does have a couple good singles and pitches like that vintage Bubba Sparxxx that you get for most of those days, but it's just calmer. That's what I have to say. So that's the tone. But in terms of the future, like Bubba Sparxxx supposedly dropped an album like the summer of 2024. He has plenty of other projects, at least up to 2022. He at least has projects up to 2022 that Wikipedia knows about. So there's plenty of these to get to. I'm going to get to some more of these. I do want to get to his 2014 album His 2014 album, Mikosh Mill Road, as far as those pitches kind of have. We'll get to some more of these. I'm going to get to his 2001 album, Dark Days and Bright Nights, as well as far as those pitches kind of have. So it's just some good feral type. There's some good, awesome ones kind of get to here. But this is a pretty balanced type product, definitely better than it is. And I'd have to say it's pretty relatively superb type product, and I do recommend it quite a bit. So I just would say it's some good, nice tones kind of get on here. Just a good appetite for some country fried early 2010s hitting Bubba Sparxxx.